Okay. So this is pretty much our agenda for today. I'm going to share some updates from the CSDE, and then I'm going to turn this over to Kim Traverso and Dr. Mallory and his team, okay? So just what's new. Here are just some updates from our Superintendent's Digest on some of the different work and some of the correspondence and information that's been sent out to our superintendents. So we wanted just to share this with you. And just some information about some of our upcoming grants. The Summer Enrichment Program was launched this week, and some of the different grants that are available for districts to apply for, an expansion or innovation grants. Just keep an eye out on, we had the informational webinar on April 25th, and our applications close on May 10th. But the State Department of Ed created a nice website for you to access specific information about this opportunity. As you can see, we have, we're still tracking data. And so here are some of the information from the portal on our attendance data. We just received the March data, even though I'm sharing with you our February data. Just some really good information that came up that we are definitely trending downward. We're at 24.5%, and 4,000 students as of March 1st are no longer considered chronically absent. So that's really a great victory for us. And that's all due to the real hard work across the state for that all districts are doing. So this is great news for us. Okay. And just our next upcoming Talk Tuesday is May 17th. And we have our attendance and engagement community of practice that's going to be on May 19th. Hetty Chang will be with us again. So we look forward to that opportunity as well. So now I'm going to turn this over to Kim Traverso. So Kim, I just wanted to welcome you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your leadership at the State Department of Ed, for all the work that you do around social emotional learning and the implementation of these practices to support our schools and districts.
Thanks so much, Steve, and it's great to be here, and welcome everyone. I'm going to just take a few minutes before I turn it over to Windsor Public Schools to just talk about our statewide initiative on SEL. If you all don't know me, I'm Kim Traverso. I actually work in the Division of Student Support Services. I am overseeing SEL work, school counseling, school discipline, behavioral health, and a few other things as well. And I also oversee Indicator 4, which is in the Bureau of Special Education for suspension and expulsion. And so when you think about all these things that we're doing at the State Department, it's about coordinated effort, it's about systems, it's about building coherence. So let's just think about one thing for sure, is that there are a great deal of initiatives that are out there. And I know my districts are saying, I have an initiative fatigue, I'm exhausted. And that's completely understandable. And so what we're trying to do in support of you is to try to coordinate all these items, initiatives, practices, interventions, supports in a coordinated fashion so that you're all moving in the same direction and it makes sense. And it's not another thing that you have to do. So when I talk today, that's really about the fact of being really intentional about what we're applying and why we're applying it based on the need of our students and based on evidence-based practices as well. So the first slide is really looking at, if you go to the SEL definition, I just want to give you foundational knowledge. One is that we do in Connecticut have an SEL definition. It's a process through which children and adults achieve emotional intelligence through the competencies of self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. This is in statute. And the reason why I am bringing this up is because if you look at the wheel to the right, you will see that that is the CASEL 5 core competencies, which we are aligning to. So when you think of our SEL work and when you think of the 4 through 12 and the K to 3 habits that we have developed and currently are developing for 4 through 12, you will see that there is an alignment because it's not another thing, but it all works together moving in that direction. So why is this definition so important? The key here is that it's really about not just our children, but in tandem, our adults. We have to think about what we're doing with our adults around SEL as well. And how do we build upon that and scale up on that as professional learning, technical assistance, and of course, coaching. The other piece is that if you look at that cluster and you look at the green area there, that's about your interpersonal skills, which is your social awareness and your relationship skills. And then if you look at the orangey kind of color, that is more of your intra, which is your self-awareness and management. Now, when you get to the yellow area, we really are talking about what is responsible decision-making, but not only for self, but for others. And so how do you maneuver that? How do you manage that? And that's really putting all those pieces together and having what we call, college and career readiness success, having employability success, and so on, lifespan success. That's really what we're talking about. And we know for a fact that SEL is essential. It's been well researched. It's a strength-based approach. It's an equity approach. And the key here is that in Connecticut, we want to make sure that you have a foundational knowledge about SEL. And if you go to the next slide, I'm just going to give you, which is the last slide for me, I'm just going to give you sort of an idea of what has happened. So one is that in 2020, we did a large scale survey that went out to every single district across the state of Connecticut. And I'm very happy to announce that we had about 67% of our districts respond to the survey, which is a pretty good response rate. And in that response rate, we asked questions about policy, practices, anything that had to do with measures around SEL. And 2 things were highlighted in that survey besides multiple different ideas and suggestions. One is that we wanted a universal screener, and 2 is that we wanted the 4 through 12 habits. And so the screener, as you all know, is the Devereaux Student Strength Assessment. And Windsor Public Schools is definitely going to talk about this today and how are they using that in their Tier 1 supports. And what does that actually look like as far as when you measure and look at outcomes over time. That's one. And then the habits will be released, just so that you know, in the summer after approval from our State Board of Education. And we also are in the vetting process right now. So stay tuned on that. Lastly, the only thing that I wanted to say is that I went to Windsor Public Schools a couple of weeks ago for their SEL Day. And I have to tell you that it was an incredible experience. Everyone was completely engaged, student and staff. It was high level thinking that was going on. You had a facilitator who was an 11th grader, mind you, a facilitator who is teaching and coaching staff and students as the facilitator for SEL advisory. Wow. So it was highly impressive, highly engaging, and I'm just really proud of the work that they've done within, just think about this, in 1 year where they were and where they are now. So I know that Dr. Mallory has put this forth as a priority, and I'm sure he will explain to you how he has made this grow from one end to the other so well and so quickly. So I'm going to turn it over to my esteemed team from Windsor Public Schools and Dr. Mallory.
Let's stop sharing. All right, hold on. So you can share, right, Dr. Mallory?
Yes, I can, Stephen. Thank you so much.
Let me introduce Dr. Mallory and his team. Okay, I'd like to introduce, first of all, Dr. Mallory is a transformative leader and educational influencer with over 14 years of experience working across the country with educational systems at the secondary and post-secondary levels. Being recruited to Windsor, Dr. Mallory co-led the diversity efforts within the UConn School of Business while teaching undergraduate courses at the NAIG School of Education. Dr. Mallory currently leads the Social Emotional Learning Department in Windsor Public Schools. He holds a Bachelor's of Science in Marketing from Southern University and A&M College, a Master's in Survey Research, and PhD in Learning, Leadership, and Educational Policy from the University of Connecticut. Joining him is Kruti Darsindia. She's a high-achieving and active student leader at Windsor High. Kruti has been the recipient of numerous awards, and she's the leading voice of her school district and is committed to taking advantage of every opportunity. One of Kruti's biggest goals is to become an investment banker and CPA. She's an awe-inspiring leader in the class of 2023. And last but not least, joining this team is Kendrick Moore. He's an empathetic leader who's motivated to help others achieve their dreams. He has decades of experience in coaching, training, and motivational speaking and life coaching. Kendrick has created programs for both students in and out of school in order to develop purposeful leaders. Through the development of targeted student programs, he has played a vital role in supporting students at Windsor High to get them connected to academic, career, and athletic opportunities. It's such a pleasure to have the three of you join us today as we continue our attendance and engagement work at these Talk Tuesdays. So thank you so much for being here with us, Windsor Public Schools.
Absolutely. Well, we are thrilled to be here. So I want to thank you, Stephen, for those gracious introductions. Kim Traverso, want to thank you and the state for all of your leadership, for the work that you all have been doing, and for really, locking in and buying and trying to provide the resources and opportunities around this most important work. So thank you all for being here. We are going to just jump right in and as I like to say, being from Louisiana, laissez le bon temps rouler, let the good times roll. So we're here to talk about transforming culture and empowering youth, and just some of the real powerful work that we've been able to do within year one within Windsor Public Schools around organizing ourselves around social emotional learning, and specifically around trying to transform culture within the need of all of our students and educators. So just for today, quickly give you three of the quick P's. So today's purpose is to pretty much to illuminate our SEL initiatives and a lot of the amazing work that we've been able to do to transform culture here within the district. Kind of give you our process. So walk through some of our SEL priorities, the progress we've been making, and also provide staff and student reflections. And then the payoff, right? What is the ultimately, to have you all leave with a better understanding of SEL and how we are transforming culture and being intentional about how we teach SEL skills to all members of our school community. So when I was recruited by the superintendent of schools, Dr. Terrell Hill, here at Windsor Public Schools, a year ago, one of the things that I wanted to do kind of as an educational leader, thinking about how we're going to organize ourselves within social emotional learning, how are we going to actually, define our priorities and make it, intentional, make it passionate, make it purposeful, and when thinking, of all of our educators and stakeholders, how do we make this thing explicit so it's not, this new initiative or this new thing, but it seamlessly can be integrated within the amazing work that was already happening pre-me, but centering, the social emotional learning framework and the possibility to empower, student voice. So our first priority, essentially, how we began organizing and I began taking the steps was how can we introduce SEL into our district systems and structures? So I initially created SEL strategy meetings with all school admin, the district office, our Office of Family and Community Partnerships, because as we all know, social emotional learning is not just centered around school districts and the individual school, but it's also, if you understand the broader CASEL framework, right, it ties in, you know, home and family and the greater community. So how can we begin having strategy meetings around how can we draw the lines between these different divisions? The second thing was specifically, which is unique to Windsor Public Schools and kind of from the leadership of our superintendent, we were able to hire social emotional specialists for all of our 6 schools within the districts. So you take, you know, in traditional sense, right, you have the school counselors, the social workers, you have, you know, all of the different, you know, individuals that currently support students. But by being able to hire a team of social emotional specialists within each of the schools, that literally, with everything being aligned to the MTSS framework that everyone is familiar with, we were then able to not only, you know, provide these SEL specialists within the school, but then now literally be able to connect them and have them be beneficial within the tier 1, tier 2 instruction, and in most cases in the collaborative space around the tier 3 instruction for some of those students that have been identified. Third was conducted district-wide professional development trainings with teachers, staff, SEL specialists in conjunction with an SEL exemplar organization out of New York, the Urban Assembly. So we set the tone at the beginning of the year, kind of made the SEL framework and PDs kind of like a rock star concert, right? We wanted to empower our educators to say, this is not only the direction that we're going in, but we understand that you all have been doing amazing work and incredible things, but this is how we're going to make it explicit to the things that you've already been doing. So you've been building remarkable relationships, you've been engaging within differentiated instruction. So how can we get you all to say, oh, hold on, this is not a new initiative, but this is actually something that I've already been doing, but now you all are reframing and helping me reimagine what my instructional practices could be, so then I can continue to do the great work and hit the ground running. So really wanted to hit the ground with that. The fourth thing was focused all communication on SEL skills, right? So I know, and we all know a lot of the different political landscapes and just the different talking points around cultural responsive pedagogy and social emotional learning and all of those things. But the undeniable fact that I understand as a reality is, and I think most people can understand, we cannot refute that social emotional skills, those competencies are skilled. It's all about skill development. It's not about ideology. It's not about anything else but the skill development of the educators and the students that we serve. So then I posited to the entire district, what if we had everyone in Windsor Public Schools able at a moment's notice to be able to identify, self-identify and articulate their strengths, their needs, and their challenges around social emotional skills? How powerful that could be to in-class engagement, how powerful that can be for student empowerment and activating student voice. So by focusing all of our communication on social emotional skills and the aspect that is skill development, we were able to get even more substantial buy-in from the onset, because it's the targeted skills that we all can appreciate and know that if our skills and our educators can identify these skills, then ultimately we can move forward and do some pretty robust things. And then the last thing in priority 1 was just in partnership with our Office of Family and Community Partnerships, how can we get our families activated and engaged and kind of reimagine what family engagement looks like within introductory events and forums around social emotional skills? Our second priority was, now, how do I get us, the district, how do we kind of create a roadmap to high quality SEL to be established at every school? So within using one of the kind of tools within the Urban Assembly, but kind of this kind of portal to organize, right? We were able to use kind of a portal matrix to how can we take an audit of everything that's been happening currently to grow in alignment around social emotional learning. So our instructional practices, what are the social emotional supports? What are the behavior supports, extracurricular activities? What's happening with, you know, adult SEL in the building? How can we then take an audit of everything that's happening to really take a scan and assessment of, okay, where are we and where can we build from that perspective? And then the second aspect, once we kind of took a scan, then we were able to effectively begin our planning aspects within each of our individual schools, because though we have a broader social emotional vision for the district, we do understand that our P2 schools have their own identity and their own brand. Our 3 to 5 schools have their own identity and brand. It's the same thing for our middle school and our high school. So we wanted to take that into consideration to where, how can we then plan while drawing the line between each of our schools within the district, but also realizing that, hey, what's going to happen or what's happening, you know, from the habit building and the holistic development in our elementary schools, you know, we have different unique challenges within our middle school and our high school. So how can we plan to be effective within that perspective? Then our third process priority, which I'm very grateful to the state, Kim Traverso and her team for literally connecting us with Aperture Education and providing this resource within the DESA to then be able to collect data around the social emotional skills of our students. So this has really been powerful for me as a, you know, person who comes from higher education and understanding the quantitative and the qualitative impact that data can have within a given moment. The DESA screener for us has been so powerful because literally what I love about the DESA specifically, unlike other assessments, the DESA is literally around empowering student voice, activating student voice, and what I like to call, right, triangulating between the family, the teacher, and the student around how can we observe certain behavior or certain skill deficiencies that potentially might be happening within a student, depending on whether it's the influence, what we've learned from the pandemic, right? Those different unique impacts that students and families have had. But then at a moment's notice within the different assessment windows, now we can capture, right, different data. And to kind of bring this home really quickly, when we did our first assessment within October, right, we were able to screen all of our students, majority of our students. And for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm just showing our K-8 visual. And we were able to capture, okay, so, you know, the DESA has the need for support, the typical, or the strengths. So we realized, okay, we have a substantial amount of students who needed support. When we started to take this assessment and the data from it, we understood a lot of students hadn't been in school in 18 months and 24 months. So a lot of their transition was like, whoa, oh, I'm in this building and there's other people. I've been isolated within my home environment for all of this time. How do I adapt? How do I engage? How do I, you know, be vulnerable in a space that has been unfamiliar to me due to the pandemic? So as you can kind of see here, we were able to take all of this different data, then connect that with our SEL specialists directly with those students within a tier 1 or a tier 2 kind of infrastructure to say, okay, these students who might need, you know, support around self-awareness and around the struggles that they might have here. Oh, these students over here need, you know, support around self-management. We were able to begin creating small little clusters to support teachers and to support those individual students within an individual and a one-to-one basis. And then if you kind of see from February, our next assessment window that we just completed, because of a lot of the amazing work, all of our districts, for the most part, we were able to see, you know, substantial growth within our, you know, from moving from typical to strength based on targeted utilizing the data to empower and activate student voice. When we see some of our need for support, where it was like, okay, 4th grade, we went from our initial assessment of 17% of students who needed support, but now we have 20% of our students need support. Real time, that data allowed us to say, well, what potentially could have happened at the start of the year? And, you know, that could have potentially had some of our students kind of regress in a little bit. And how can we reconnect with them, reimagine them, focus on the skill development aspect of it to then move forward. And then we were able to kind of draw up by basically being able to use this data to say, oh, okay, unfortunately within our district, we had some, you know, a lot of sickness and some deaths that happened within our 4th grade band that then kind of matriculated in transition and impacted those students in a particular way. Like, oh, okay, so now we can empower the student. We can convey this within what the teacher is seeing within that perspective. We can bring in the family in that dynamic. Now we can have some pretty powerful conversation around the skill development and connecting and re-empowering those students to do the work. Then our 4th priority was our teaching commitment, right? So we've been able up to this point in the year conduct over 2,000 walkthroughs. So I wanted to connect with all of our admin in the building. So you all are doing walkthroughs and you are trying to, you know, imagine and see and observe what teachers are doing. What does this look like from classroom climate and SEL aspect, what's happening in the classroom? So one of the things that I was able to articulate, and I know from a lot of higher ed institutions, a lot of educators who come into schools, they get amazing content, they get amazing things from the school district, but certain things around classroom climate is not necessarily emphasized as most coming from pre-service institutions. Some of the aspects of how to organically build relationships. So we were able to do these walkthrough and say, okay, well, 67% of the time, there's evidence of positive, you know, student-to-student relationship. This is not, you know, from a gotcha moment or any other things, leveraging the walkthroughs to say, hey, here's an opportunity for us to support you around your social emotional development and awareness as a teacher, to then say, what are some other strategies, instructional practices that you can do to then activate student voice or increase relationship building within your students. And then, you know, one of the, I think the most important thing that we were able to kind of garner from, you know, our teaching commitment, over 80% of our educators, literally based on the excitement around our alignment around social emotional learning, was like, yes, we need this. We want more time in our instructional practice to do SEL. We want more training around social emotional skills, of our own social emotional skills. So this data point has been so impactful for us, because they realize no matter how amazing I can be, or no matter how awesome I think I am from an instructional practice, if I don't have the social emotional environment for my students to want to engage and be passionate about learning, we'll never increase the bigger picture, the academic, you know, outcomes that we want for our students. If I don't know how in a moment's notice to be able to see, wow, my students are disengaged because of their social awareness, or I don't have social awareness around different ethnicities, around different cultural influences, around different holidays that might happen, you know, within that's impacting my students, then how am I actually going to get all of their commitment from a learning perspective? So now we're leveraging, right, from the consumer base, our students, and then empowering our educators to say, well, if this is what you want, how can we make this practical for you? How can we use kind of video modeling to then use exemplar educators within each building, right? i.e. those teachers who everyone, I would say, even on this call, you all have had a favorite teacher, right? So before social emotional learning was a thing, that favorite teacher, I would say, embodied all of the elements and characteristics of a socially emotional exemplar within their own space, which was so impactful. Now let's give our teachers and our educators that direct aspect and direct training, so then they can continue to serve our students in the best optimal way. And then our last priority was just more so introducing SEL authentically to family and community partnerships. So within our director, Christina Morales, and her team within the Office of Family and Community Partnerships, we've been able to identify 3 core strategies, right, around SEL. Right? How can we build collaborative, trusting relationships focused on learning with our families? Right? How can we engage them around high quality learning practices, not just core content areas, but around certain practices that could be modeled at home? Right? And family and school capacity development, so then we can have an engagement and they can understand how they are able to be invited within the process. So some of the things that's been really, 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 really cool around some of the initiatives in some of our family resource centers, we have been literally, and one of the things that I do for Windsor Public Schools and just within the broader, you know, broader community, how can we do skill-based relationship building workshops around social emotional competencies? And it's been amazing to hear from families to say, wow, now I had no idea that my student was so, you know, disengaged. And we all know the phenomenon that's called cell phones and social media, right? I had no idea that this powerful supercomputer that I've given my young person, that I probably should be having healthy conversation around the dinner table. Or if it's not around the dinner table and we're watching a movie, how can I understand my own self-awareness or my social awareness as a parent, knowing that I have all of these other influences and these other, you know, obligations and things that I need to do for the home, bills, so forth and so on, to understand that if I might be emotionally disengaged or emotionally charged up in a particular way, my young person might be observing me every single day. And it's what I'm potentially doing at home, is that then having a direct correlation to behavior or other challenges that they might be having within this classroom environment, and then being able to empower our families. And our families, like, yes, we want more information. We want to have more videos. We want to have more community forums. And I've been able to literally walk them through the step, and it's understanding it's a spectrum. Right? Some families, right, might come from a higher SES standpoint, and they are like, listen, we're locked in. We're at every parent-teacher conference. We're at every, you know, every meeting. We're locked in. We have some families, you know, our students, some come from single-parent homes, some come from foster families. So how do we still engage all of them and say, well, we still want your learning experience to be amazing, and we owe that to you if you are, you know, locking in and navigating our school district. And then this is just a quick kind of snapshot of some of the things that we do across our schools. So the way that we're leveraging SEL is we do morning broadcasts. So through student announcements, some of them are videotaped, and we have our students, right? Today's social emotional competency is self-awareness. And this is what that means. So we're then able to have greater touch points kind of from a tier 1 level by pushing this out in broadcast. One of our most popular things within the district is our lunch bunches. I always say, having a conversation with a person off the fly could be impactful, but having a conversation on targeted skill development over food, oh my gosh, our students are, at our P to 5 level, we'll have little small lunch bunches with students, and we're engaging in skill development with our SEL specialists around, what does it mean to be a good friend? What does it mean to build positive relationships? What does it mean to be able to share and be vulnerable, depending on how you're feeling throughout the course of the day? And we're doing that over, lunch and those type of capacities. We have our SEL specialists who do one-on-one sessions, small group, classroom sessions. I've took it upon myself to engage with a lot of our educators within small PLCs, within different PDs. And it's been really, 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 really powerful and impactful. And we really are just getting started here, but we've been able to align ourselves, as I've been able to articulate, around these particular things. So now, before I throw it to our amazing student-led advisor and rock star, Ms. Kruti Darsandi, I just want to show a quick snippet of Kim Traverso mentioned a little bit. She was in attendance of our SEL showcase a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to just play this video clip, just a little bit, a 1-minute video clip, just kind of highlighting a little bit of what Kruti was doing. And then I'm going to throw it to Kruti to be able to kind of articulate a little bit more.
I'm Kruti, as all of you heard. I'm a junior here. And these are my wonderful advisors. That's the wave. So basically, this is going to run like a normal advisory would. We have a very interactive advisory, and this is how our lessons work every week. We meet every Wednesday for 30 minutes, and we do a lesson on a different SEL skill or component. Sometimes we throw a few fun games in there, but today we're going to be focusing on relationship skills. Right, understanding that two people in a relationship might not have the same perspective on something. Asking questions. I think that's a big thing, because in effective communication, you also want to ask questions to make sure there's no gray areas where you don't know where the other person is coming from. You want to be clear about what you're saying. So that's the first trait that's important to have a good relationship. The second one is accountability. I'm going to ask this. I'm going to raise my hand for this too. How many of us have made excuses for something that we didn't do, or something that we did do? I'm Kruti, as always.
All right, so Kruti, I want to bring you into the fold, one of our rock stars in Windsor Public Schools. And, if you can just explain, some of the things we talked about, right? How has SEL impacted you? Talk the audience through, the SEL advisory lesson and just all of those things. The floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kruti Darsandi, as you've already heard. I'm really excited to be here today talking to all of you. This is something I'm very passionate about, so it's really exciting to be able to talk to all of you about it and really give the student perspective, because we're always hearing this from the adult's perspective, but I think it's really important that you guys get to understand where I'm coming from and where other students are also coming from. So the first thing that we're going to be talking about is, how has SEL impacted me, right? Like, we want to know a good example of how has SEL changed the course of like my academic career and my extracurriculars and the other things I do. So I'm going to give you a little background. I am a junior, as you know. Right now is AP exam season, so there's a lot of stress going on. There are a lot of things that I do outside of school, such as clubs, activities. I have a job, I have an internship. So my schedule is pretty packed. And to be honest, I didn't really know what SEL was before I came to the high school, and even before COVID, I didn't know what it was. It was something that was a foreign concept to me. I'd never heard of it. And right now at Windsor Public Schools, kids all the way in elementary school, first grade, are learning about SEL, but I never understood that. But after COVID, as I started learning about SEL, Mr. Moore, one of the people from Windsor Public Schools, who's on the call right now, really helped me understand what it was. It kind of changed the course of how I pursued my academic career, as well as the other activities I was doing. And one of the biggest things that I learned from my journey on SEL has been self-awareness, really being aware of how I'm feeling in the moment, how something's impacting me, how something is causing me to behave. And I think having that self-awareness is what leads to that social awareness of if you're aware of how you're impacting others or the environment that's surrounding you. And within this self-awareness aspect, I just wanted to give a really recent example. So a couple of days ago, I was feeling very overwhelmed with everything going on. It was really wearing down on me. And something that I realized was that I was able to really understand my emotions and kind of talk to someone about it and really get it off of my chest and express my emotions in an effective way, which honestly wouldn't have happened if I didn't have that self-awareness of like, I am feeling this way, I need to work on it, or really understand how to develop it. So one of the key things here is that being able to understand your emotions is so important, especially for high schoolers. A lot of us are going into class with so much going on. Like Dr. Mallory said, we have things going on in our personal lives, from our households to other things that we're doing outside of school. They can wear down on you. And if we don't really teach our students how to have these SEL skills of being able to be aware, make responsible decisions, we're going to send them into the classroom environment where they're not focused or concentrated on what they're learning. And at the end of the day, that's going to hinder their academic success. Another way that SEL has impacted me is definitely with the concepts of social awareness and really being able to make responsible decisions. Ms. Traverso was talking about responsible decision making is not just for yourself, it's for others as well. So being able to make a responsible decision to impact my classroom environment, my peers' environment in the best way I can, so that we can all have the best academic success that is possible. And at the end of the day, something that's really important to understand is that SEL is something we're all working on. We're all growing at it at the same time. There's not a clear end to being perfect at it. So there's always this constant development process. And one of the thoughts that came to my mind while I was really listening to this conversation that we had before I started speaking was how we have this favorite teacher who really embodies SEL. And one thing I can tell you for sure is out of all my classes, the one class where we are most engaged, where we have open conversations, where we're excited to go, where I'm excited to go, is the class where the teacher really embodies SEL, where she maintains a consistent time in the beginning of class to check in with us, do a little discussion about how we're feeling. So if you can see that and see that students are really doing better in classes where the teacher is also embodying SEL, it's helping the academic success. So clearly there is a correlation between social emotional learning and academic success. Now you also saw a little snippet of the lesson I gave, and some of you were also there in person. And I just want to talk about how we can embody this structure of advisory in all the schools in Connecticut actually, and really help develop this idea of what social emotional learning is into our students so that they can apply this even after high school and whatever they pursue in their careers. So what thought process goes into planning these advisories, right? Like in the beginning of the year, I became a student advisory leader. I have sophomores in my advisory, I have about 20 of them. And I needed to find an approach where they were going to really want to be there. For so long, advisory has been something that we dread. It has a negative connotation with it because we're not teaching relevant things. We have videos up on the board, we have worksheets. Nobody wants to do that. So I had to come with the approach of making them want to come to advisory, making them excited. And the first step of doing that is culture. We're always talking about how our environment affects our mood. I'm sure all of you on this call, your environment at work definitely affects how you feel about going there and being there. So it was important that from day one, we established this culture of wanting to be an advisory, having a safe culture where everyone felt welcome, having all students understand each other, even if there were disagreements. So there needed to be that establishment of it being a safe environment so that everyone was okay with being vulnerable, because social emotional learning, it's not easy. We are admitting our flaws, we're admitting our weaknesses, we're admitting our strengths. So that development of a culture is the first thing that we need to focus on whenever we're trying to create an effective environment for SEL. And another thing that I also focused on was creating engaging lessons. Here's the thing. This might be a secret, but when you put a presentation on a board and give kids worksheets, it's directly like our minds go to, this is an assignment. We don't want to do that. So I knew I couldn't just put up a presentation and give them a worksheet. That was not going to work. No matter how fun that worksheet was, no matter if it was bingo, they were not going to care about it. So one tactic that has really worked for me this whole year has been honestly sticking to either doing an activity, which is hands-on, playing like a game that's interactive, or having just a conversation with them. It always works because they're feeling engaged, they're feeling welcome, they're doing something that they are having fun with, and I'm still able to teach them SEL lesson, because there doesn't need to be a worksheet to learn SEL. SEL is pretty much in every single thing you do. So it's not really hard to embed it with small activities that we're able to do. And an example of that is a couple of weeks ago, we did musical chairs. I know you might be like, how does musical chairs relate to SEL? So we would do musical chairs, and every time a person really got out of the game, they would share a social emotional learning skill that they're working on, and we would have a discussion as a whole class of how they can improve on it. So that's a simple way of embedding it, and they all got a takeaway from that. And the last thing that really helps me build an advisory where everyone's engaged and focused, and like some of you saw, like attentive, is honestly having them feel like I'm their equal. I cannot be putting myself in a position of authority or like I'm better than them or I know more than them, because I'm honestly learning just as much as them as we go along. So if we have more people like standing there as equals with them, they'll be wanting to listen to the other person more. And that kind of leads me into the topic of why is it important of it being student-led, right? Like many advisories can be run by teachers, but how does a student leading that advisory help? Well, if you have kids, you know that your kid might not listen to you if you're telling them to do something, but if their friend tells them to do it, they will do it. Trust me, if my mom tells me to do something, I might not do it, but if my best friend tells me, I will do it. And that's because we as individuals are going to listen to our peers more. We're going to be influenced by our peers more. So that's why if you have a student talking to another student, they're more likely to listen. If I'm talking to them, they're like, oh, she's a student, she's in our like grade level, she's within our era, we're going to listen to her, rather than a teacher standing there kind of talking to them. Because whenever we see an adult, we have this mindset as students that they're in a position of authority, they have control, and we kind of don't go into that approach with an open mindset to learn. So we have a closed off brain. So when we want to really impact our students, there's no better way to reach them than having our other students help them. So if we could get student advisories going in almost all of our schools within Connecticut, that would be a great way to reach the students, because they will truly be engaged in learning in those advisories. And the last point that I also want to touch on is what's the benefit, right? Like if we're doing all this, if we're implementing this, what is the benefit we're seeing? And the benefit is like, I have seen the progress within many of these students. Many of them, some of them come in sometimes, some of them don't. There's faltering attendance for some of them, but as we went on with the year, they actually started getting interested in advisory. And that is something that's a big progress for me in my eyes, because they're actually wanting to come. They think it's interesting, and that's a big step forward. Another thing is we have this cell phones, right? We have cell phones, they're a distraction. Many times kids are using them during class time. But as we started going on in the year, they were so engaged in the activities that we're doing that they weren't even using their phones. So that is a progress. And within their social emotional learning realm, I've seen some of them learn how to make the best decisions for themselves, learn how to manage their time. They were in quarter one and quarter two overwhelmed, stressed, upset about their grades. We talked about what they needed to do. We had open conversations about it, and now they're able to make better decisions. It's not saying they're perfect at it, but they're doing better. we're seeing kids, like I gave a lesson on relationship skills, and now I'm seeing these kids applying these skills within their relationships. One of the girls just came up to me a couple of days ago, and she's like, oh yeah, I talked to this person about the problems I was having. I really had an open conversation with them and we resolved it. Right? Is that not relationship skills, being able to have that effective communication with someone else? So I know that they're applying this right now, and as long as they keep on going in whatever they do, their career, their further education, they're going to use it. I'm sure all of you used SEL in some form today, and it's only 10:53 a.m. You probably used it in a conversation, making a decision, time management, anything like that. That's social emotional learning. So if we have it everywhere, if it's surrounding us everywhere, why don't we give it that much attention, right? We have 30 minutes of advisory at Windsor right now, which is better than many other schools, but that's not enough. We want to build this strong foundation of SEL. We want our kids to be prepared. We know SEL is going to lead to academic success. We need to give it more time. We need to give it more attention. Just like we're giving math and STEM attention, we need to give SEL. In a sense, SEL is going to be important to our students' lives for their personal, professional, and academic careers. And one of the last things that I do want to leave you all with is that really understanding how SEL can pivot someone's career. It can be a 360 in their life. You don't know what's going on. A lot of times kids are coming to school with so much baggage and so much emotional strain. We need to have a SEL framework to really develop a strong base at our school so that our students can focus and really have the best academic success, because every single student is able to achieve the highest academic standards as long as we give them that support and build that equity within our districts. So thank you again for listening to me. I know that was long, but I would love to hand it over to Mr. Moore now.
Yes, I told you all Crudy was our rock star just for
rock star.
And I know we have the essence of time, but really want to get, just Mr. Moore to really speak on this. So thank you all for your patience. And yeah, Mr. Moore, the floor is yours.
I mean, I don't know where to go from there, Yeah, Kruti's unbelievable. So I guess I'll leave you guys with this. I'll make it short and sweet. Having the opportunity to work with Kruti and work with Dr. Mallory, one of the things I understand is relationships, right? So the message that she gave during her advisory was about relationship building. So where am I in that relationship paradigm? So the way I see it, like SEL, like when we really look at SEL, if you just add the letter F at the end of that, it's about self. Like that's where I'm big on the personal development piece. From the very beginning, when Dr. Mallory came in, like one of the things I wanted to do consistently was build a relationship with him. We used to sit together every Tuesday morning, we used to go once a week, every Tuesday morning for about 60 minutes. We used to talk about the job part of what we were doing, but the biggest part to me was really building the relationship, right? So that personal development. I needed to know who he was. He needed to figure out who I was. We need to understand what our mission was, what our goals was, and really make sure that when we're attacking it, we're going at it together strong. That was key to me, like that personal development piece, the relationship paradigm. Where am I in this whole, where do I figure and factor in this whole SEL thing that the district is bringing in? As Kruti talked about, listen, and it's crazy because when I get a chance to talk, a lot of times I don't really script things for this very reason. When I'm hearing Dr. Mallory and Kruti talk, I can just change course right away. So a couple of things that Kruti talked about, like when she brought up the example about having a breakdown and going through the different things, that phone rang and it was Kruti on the other line, being able to help her get through certain things. So where am I in a relationship paradigm as it pertains to the students that I work with every day? But again, SELF, like self, like it brought me back to making sure I'm in position to be able to service our kids every day. I know I got hundreds of kids relying on me every day to be at my best. And I need to make sure that I'm there whenever they call and call my name and need that advice. So me and Kruti, we worked together again. As I said, Dr. Mallory and I, we used to meet for like that first month and a half, 2 months of school. That's the same thing Kruti and I do consistently Tuesday after school. Like we have our own session where I give her a chance to really decompress. She's a young lady with a ton on her plate. I'm sure you seeing what she's doing right here, how magnificent it is. You know, time that times 10. Like that's the level of commitment that she's given to everything that she does. So we sit weekly and really work on our relationship. And then how can we make sure that we are at a certain place where we are delivering every day? Because what I want Kruti to be able to do is not just give a little bit to the certain things that you're doing, not just give a little bit to you guys in this SEL presentation, not just give a little bit to the AP classes that she's doing, not to give a little bit to the internships, but she has to be able to deliver at a high level with everything that she's doing. So that's my job to, one, make sure I understand about the relationship paradigm, making sure I'm filling my cup up with that energy that I get from Dr. Mallory each day, but also making sure I'm able to provide for our youth, right? That's very important to me. Personal development is very important to me. So again, as Kruti talked about, we use SEL every day. We do. Now it's about what are you doing to give yourself the best chance at success every day? Like you need to make sure you're asking yourself that each and every day. Like, what are you doing each and every one of you on this call to give yourself the best chance at success every day? We are going to use those social emotional learning skills every day, but we can't maximize it unless you're at your best. And that's what I value the most. I need to make sure that each and every day I'm ready to perform, because I know, as I mentioned before, I got hundreds of students relying on me to be at my best every day. As it pertains to the job, this is something that I've been doing for as long as I can remember. You know, from a peer standpoint, I was always one to make sure that I'm able to be relied on for our kids. As I just navigated through life, it's something that I was always a community-based person. So having an opportunity to work with youth in the school system, it was the perfect fit because I try to live generously. Like my heart is about giving back. So anybody that's in these types of positions, first and foremost, there just needs to be that commitment to our position. Like there needs to be that commitment to what we're stepping into. If it's the school system, I gotta have a full commitment to our youth. There's no way around that. And then we'll naturally be able to work with SEL and all of the things, and we won't look at everything as a new challenge. It's just a part of what we do. Here's the deal, and I'll leave us on this. I also coach basketball. Like, right, I would like to say I'm a pretty doggone intense coach. As Kruti talked about, her favorite classes to walk into were those where SEL was demonstrated at a high level, where teachers took the time out to say, hey, you know what? We're going to spend this quality time at the beginning of class. We're going to close the classes off with asking how you're doing, make sure you have a good day. I had to learn that in coaching by being a very intense coach. I had to get those players to understand that I care about them so they can allow me to coach them hard. If you want the best out of each and every student, the teachers, the administration, the staff members, if you want to get the best out of them, knowing that this environment is not easy for everyone is not going to come in the classroom wanting to learn. Like, but how do I get the most out of each and every student? You got to let them know that you care about them so you can teach them hard. That has to be a priority. Like, and I go around, I talk a lot about relationship building and the personal development. It falls right in line with this. Like, you gotta let them know that you care about them in order for you to be able to teach them hard. Like I said, it's a lesson that I had to learn because, again, when I'm coaching, I'm intense. All of the teachers that I know that were my best teachers in school, they were passionate about what they did. But they let me know that they care about me each and every day. And at the end of the day, I can look back and say, man, like those were some of the best teachers I had, no matter how difficult those classes were. And I think if we just all make sure that we implement those things on a consistent basis, the success that we get from our kids, from a teacher standpoint, because here's the deal too. guys, it doesn't, I know listen, everything is so based on grades, and I'm not a big fan of that, honestly. But the successes, they could be the small successes with changing a kid's life. Like, we got to make sure that we embrace those as well. Like, understand that what the different types of impact that these adults can have on the kid's life. It's not always about if the kid is getting an A. So we need to make sure for those that do, we need to make sure that they shift that focus a little bit, right? And make sure that these successes come in different forms and fashions. I think if we all commit to that, what we will see in Connecticut, man, I tell our kids this, our kids leave, we have our little short interaction, they walking away, I say, change the world.
Well, I can't thank you.
Change the world. And I think if we really commit to that, we will be changing the world, starting right here in Connecticut.
Well, I can't thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Steve.
I know we went over. Your passion came out so loud and clear, just from Windsor Public Schools. Thank you so much. I know we have a few. We hit our end mark as far as our time. But I just want to say, thank you, Dr. Mallory, Kendrick, and not least Kruti, for your incredible presentation. We can stay on for any Q&A. I know that people leave normally at 11 because they have other commitments, but I just wanted to thank you all for your presentation, sharing your practices and strategies and the data around SEL to continue to support the attendance and engagement work that we're moving forward on. So I'm staying on. If everyone has to leave, you can leave, but if we can stand for a few minutes for Q&A, or anyone has a few Q&A, that's what we kind of do, Dr. Mallory. So if anyone has any questions.
What you got this block?
What block is it?
We'll go to order 4.
Topics I don't know if he's here today.
Okay.
Any questions? What great work you're doing in Windsor.
Definitely. Well, we just appreciate you all for the opportunity. Kim, thank you so much. We're passionate. So whatever you need, you have 1,000% support from us. And, we're going to continue to stay in the fight. So appreciate you all listening. And, we're going to continue to close this year out strong and try to make next year even better.
Thank you so much.
Kruti, how do you do it? How do you do it as a student with AP exams and still doing your advisories? And
4
weeks.
She's amazing. Superstar.
Yeah. Have a great support system.
Okay.
I have a support system, but it's awesome. It's always motivating to have these things going on. This is what makes me really come alive. The AP exams are amazing. We love them, but this is what this is what it's all about, right? And I'm really, really excited to be here. I was really excited to talk to you all, and I hope it was helpful. But yeah, if you guys ever need to contact me for anything,